A lot of contractors charge low prices and you shouldn't be one of them. Lowballers suck, and it sucks to get undercut by the competition, but it's just part of the game. In this video, I want to talk to you about what to do about it so you can build a successful company. We're gonna talk about three things. Number one, understanding the competition that you're gonna go up against, the market, the differences, and who those contractors are at those different price points. Number two, what you should do about your pricing, regardless about all the other competition, what they're doing about their pricing. And then finally, we need to talk about the new problem that this is gonna create in your business when you get pricing figured out. So if we look at the market pricing, there's essentially four different buckets that painting contractors fall into. There's the cheap guy, right? The cheap guy does bids for half the price, sometimes even less than half the price. You have no idea how he's even doing that. The second one is kind of like 20% less guy. All right, that's someone who comes in and your price is $5,000 and they're doing it for $4,000 or $3,800 or something like that, where you're not comfortable going that low. And then there's the market leader pricing. We definitely want to talk about that one. And the fourth bucket is your premium pricing. So now we want to dig into each of these so you can understand who these different contractors are and what their limitations are and why they're pricing where they're pricing. First, talk about the cheap guy. The cheap guy is doing bids at cost. So let's just call his price $2,500. So this guy is making essentially 0% gross margins. 100% of the price they're charging is going to labor and materials. They just might also be one of the laborers. And so there's no profit in that business, which is why they can charge what they can charge. These contractors are typically doing under $150,000 a year, usually even less than that. In fact, if you talk to Sherwin-Williams and ask them what's the average painting contractor spend on paint per year, it's like $15,000 a year or less. So most painting contractors out there are actually under $100,000 a year. So that's who this contractor is. They're doing the painting themselves. They're charging for literally just labor and material costs essentially, and they don't have any marketing budget. While you do run into these people from time to time, they can't do that many houses because they're the only one doing the painting and they have no marketing budget. And so when you're spending your marketing dollars on Google, Facebook, different lead services, or you're getting referrals or repeat business or referrals from your professional relationships, you're usually not even competing with these people. So you are gonna run into them from time to time, but you don't really need to worry about them because they're not competing for the same customers as you because they don't have any money to be competing in those customer pools as you. They have no time, no money, and no other. The only way they're running their business is off of referrals for their super cheap price, and they're getting paid for their labor. All right, so now let's talk about the 20% less guy. So if cheap guy's charging $2,500, this guy's charging $3,500 to $4,000 on the same paint job. This guy's making more like 35 to 40% gross profit margins, which means 60 to 65% is going to labor and materials. This contractor typically is doing somewhere between $300,000 and $600,000 per year, but they can't really grow past that point because they don't have enough profit margin to hire other people, and they don't have enough profit margin to grow their marketing. There's certain marketing that works for them, but other marketing is too expensive because they have this limited profit margin. And because they have a low profit margin, they just can't spend money on certain marketing avenues because it costs too much as a percentage of revenue. So these contractors are typically running a $500,000, $600,000 business, maybe a little bit more. So again, if you're charging more and you want to be a market leader, this person's less than you, but they can't really compete with you because they also can't do that many jobs per year because they don't have the labor force, and they can't invest enough in marketing, so they can't even compete with you in marketing because they don't have the marketing dollars to spend. And by the way, this is where a lot of painting contractors fall into. There's tons of painting contractors out there who are the cheap guy or the 20% less guy or somewhere in between. And there's nothing wrong with being in that spot. It's just, when you run your business at these kind of margins, you can't really grow a healthy business. You're never going to get to a point where you can build a team and truly create freedom in your business. We need to charge a different price to be able to do that. So now let's look at the market leader in any market. So now let's talk about the market leader. So this is the next type of contractor in a market. This is the one that can gobble up the most business out there. So let's say in the same situation, cheap guy's $2,500, 20% less guys, $3,500 to $4,000. The market leader is charging somewhere around $5,000 for a paint job. But this person or this contractor is making a 50% gross margin. What that allows them to do is outspend everybody else on marketing. So they can spend more money, which means they can generate more estimates. And even if they win less estimates because they're priced, they're still doing so many more estimates that they end up doing way more volume. And when they're doing more volume, they also get more Google reviews, they get more referrals, they get more repeat business, they get more commercial opportunities, they get more exposure because they're everywhere, because they can spend so much on marketing dollars. Furthermore, because they have a good solid price with healthy margins, they can afford team members, project managers, estimators, office team. They can hire good people to do great work, which allows them to handle all the estimates they're generating, all the work they're doing. And this is the price point that you have to be a market leader. If you don't have that kind of margin, you can't afford marketing. Or if you don't have that kind of margin, you can't afford the team. Or if you try to, your margins end up being so slim that you're at risk. You end up making a 10% net profit margin on your business. And I don't think you should be running a $2 million business to make $200,000. I think you take way too much risk as the business owner to be making a 10% profit margin. I think you need to be making a 20% profit margin, and the only way to do that is to be at 50% gross margins so you can invest heavily in marketing, so you can invest in building a team and still keep a 20% net profit at the end of the day. So this is the market leader. This is where we want to be. These are the companies that end up swallowing up the majority of the work in the market, but they don't. They are the biggest in the market, but from market share perspective, it's a tiny little sliver. I've mentioned the stat several times before that in Colorado, there's about $2 billion a year in paint services. There's $500 million a year in paint that is sold in Colorado along the Front Range, which means there's about $2 billion in painting services. Looking at my tiny little market I'm in northern Colorado, there's maybe $150 million a year in painting services being done in this little circle, and we pick up like 8 million of it, and we're one of the bigger companies. That means we aren't winning most of the work, but it's tons and tons and tons of these cheap guys and little guys landing tons and tons of work, but we're continuing to grow and grow and grow because we have the margins and the healthy business to be able to do that. Now let's finally talk about the last bucket, which is the premium guy. The premium price guy comes in and charges $6,000 or $7,000 for the same paint job. I love the premium guy. I think that if you're a solo painter, or if you're a cheap guy or a 20% less guy, what you should do is switch your prices and be a premium guy, because you can charge a premium price if you don't do as many services. And so if you're someone who like loves the trade and loves the craft and you're super passionate about, and you're on site and you're doing impeccable work and the customer gets to work with the owner every step of the way, and you're on site every day and extremely professional, you can command a premium price. And simple supply and demand says you're a single painter, you and a helper, like you can't do that many jobs, so you can charge more. And when you charge even more, you actually have even more margin to spend on marketing to find the premium clients. So now let's talk about how you should think about your pricing. So in my mind, of these 4 buckets, there's only 2 buckets you should ever consider as a painting contractor in terms of pricing. And it's not being the cheap guy, and it's not being the 20% less guy. There's a time to charge a little bit less money, and it's maybe on like your first 5 jobs and then never again. Where you wanna be is either the market leader who's charging whatever price you need to charge so that your gross margins are 50%. That means 50% goes to labor and materials, and then 50% is left over for overhead and profit. Or you should be the premium price. And how you should determine which one of those you wanna be is what are your ultimate goals with the company. So if you want to build a market leading company and really big, then there is a little bit of an advantage to maybe not being the highest price, because if these 2 companies go against each other over and over, this company can probably outperform this company because of just simply price. Like if both companies are really strong at sales and really strong at marketing and the sales is equal, customers will go with the lower price. And so there's a price optimization point to capture more of the market. But if you actually would prefer to not build like this really big organization, but you wanna make a ton of money and you wanna focus more on the craft and doing amazing work for amazing clients and not like running all over the place, I think premium price is a great way to go, because you can make really good money and work with a small team and work with clients who appreciate that kind of work. So make your choice on which of these price points you're gonna be at, and know that depending on where you price yourself limits what's possible for that business. You simply can't grow a big, healthy company that gives you freedom unless you're charging enough money to do so. All right, so now let's talk about this new problem this creates. So let's say you listen to this and you say, hey, I've been the cheap guy, or I've been the 20% less guy, and I can see the trap that I'm in because of my pricing. I wanna make this change. A lot of people don't make that change because of fear. And the fear is that if I start charging more money, I'm not gonna win as many jobs. And I wanna address that fear and talk about what would we do about that. The first thing is to understand that if I charge more, I probably will win fewer jobs if everything stays the same, right? If nothing else changes and all you do is raise your price, there will be some customers who say no and they used to say yes. But because you raise your price, you will probably make the same amount of money, but you'll do fewer jobs. So the increase in margin offsets the decrease in lost jobs. So you literally start getting paid the same money for less work. And so that's the first thing to understand is like, it's not just losing jobs, it's also gaining margin. You gotta remember that. The next thing to remember is you can always get better at sales. At my own company, I've never been in a spot where we can't get better at sales, and I've never met anybody out there who can't improve their sales. And so if you increase your price and you get better at sales, oftentimes you can sell just as many jobs, and it makes no difference at all. And then the last point to make here is because you've raised your prices, you have more money coming in on every job. You can spend more on marketing and pick up a few more estimates to book that extra job that now you didn't lose. And you're right back to the same revenue numbers, but you've added 10 or 15% to your bottom line because all that added revenue is just right, that's just all your money because you were already spending all the other money. This is just dropped straight to the bottom line. So I would strongly encourage you to consider where you're pricing yourself and where you want to be pricing yourself, and to not be fearful of charging what you deserve, charging what you're worth, and charging more money. Because the reality is, when you start charging more money, you can deliver better service to customers, you can live a better quality of life, you can compensate and pay your team better, you can provide more opportunities to people. It's not serving anybody charging less than you should be charging. So I hope this video gives you some perspective on pricing in different markets. In every single market, there is market leading companies at 50% gross margins. Like, I don't care where you are, it's how the market works, because that's who becomes the market leader, is the one with the biggest margins, because they can spend the most on marketing and become the market leader. You can make these margins no matter where you are, and when you make these kinds of margins, you make more money and you create a better life and better opportunities for people. Hope you got something out of the video. Drop a comment below, drop any questions. Love to hear from you. Peace.